It was a bitterly cold evening. Snowflakes swirled in the glow of the streetlights, and the city's heart beat quietly under the hush of winter. People hurried past, their scarves pulled tight, their eyes fixed forward. They didn't notice him. They never did. Michael sat hunched on the frozen steps of an old library, his only shelter a torn coat and the half-empty cup at his feet. His hands, cracked and trembling, clutched at the fabric as if holding himself together. Once, not so long ago, he had been like them, rushing home after work, arms full of groceries, laughter waiting behind a warm door. But life had unraveled. His wife's illness had drained his savings. The funeral had drained his spirit. Jobs slipped away, friends disappeared. And now he was invisible. Until that night. A sound pierced through the quiet, sharp and desperate. The scream of a child. Michael's head shot up. Across the street, he saw a small figure, a boy no older than 7, struggling as a man yanked at his arm, dragging him toward the shadows of an alley. Michael didn't think. His body moved before his mind caught up. He sprinted across the icy street, his feet slipping, heart pounding. "Hey!" His voice was hoarse, raw from days of silence, but it carried enough weight to make the man falter. The boy's tear-streaked face turned toward Michael, eyes wide with terror. The man snarled, tightening his grip. "Mind your business, old man." But Michael didn't stop. He lunged forward, grabbing the stranger's arm with a strength he didn't know he still had. "Let him go." The struggle was brief but fierce. Michael pushed, pulled, fought with every ounce of desperation left in his bones. The boy screamed again, wriggling free in the chaos. And just as suddenly as it began, it was over. The stranger shoved Michael hard against the wall, cursed under his breath, and fled into the night. Gasping, Michael staggered but remained upright. He looked down. The boy was trembling, clutching his scraped hands, eyes still wide with fear. Michael dropped to his knees, his own chest heaving. "You're safe now, buddy. You're safe." The boy launched himself into Michael's arms, sobbing into his ragged coat. For the first time in years, Michael felt something other than emptiness. He felt needed. Minutes later, a frantic voice called out, "Tommy!" A woman appeared, her face pale, eyes darting. When she saw the boy, relief collapsed her shoulders. She ran forward, dropping to her knees and gathering him into her arms. "Oh, thank God, I was looking everywhere." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she kissed his forehead over and over. Then she looked up and saw Michael. For a moment, she froze. He was dirty, unshaven, his clothes worn thin. Every instinct told her to pull her son back, to shield him. But then she saw it. The boy's arms wrapped tightly around him, the way Michael's hand trembled, steadying the child gently. The quiet exhaustion in his eyes, not dangerous, but broken. "You saved him," she whispered. Michael shook his head. I just happened to be here." The woman swallowed hard. "No, you protected him. I owe you everything." Michael looked down, ashamed. "You don't owe me anything." But the boy, Tommy, grabbed his hand. "Mommy, he's my hero." The woman's eyes softened, torn between fear and gratitude. Finally, she extended her hand. "I'm Sarah. This is Tommy. Please come with us, at least for dinner. It's the least I can do." Michael hesitated. He hadn't been invited into a home in years. His pride told him to refuse. But Tommy's small hand still clung to his, and his heart longed for warmth. So, with a deep breath, Michael nodded. Sarah's small apartment was warm, filled with the scent of roasted chicken and fresh bread, the kind of smell that wrapped around you like a blanket. Michael stepped inside hesitantly, his shoulders hunched, his eyes darting as if expecting someone to tell him he didn't belong. It had been years since he had walked into a real home. The walls were decorated with crayon drawings, family photos, and shelves full of books and toys. To Michael, it looked like a palace. Tommy rushed inside, throwing off his coat and running to the table. "Mommy, look, I brought a guest." Sarah smiled faintly, though her eyes lingered on Michael. He stood awkwardly by the door, his torn coat dripping melted snow onto the mat. "You can hang that here," she said gently, pointing to a hook by the door. Michael hesitated, then removed the coat. Beneath it, his shirt was worn thin, the fabric stretched and faded. He suddenly felt exposed, ashamed. But Sarah said nothing. Instead, she motioned for him to sit. "Dinner's almost ready." The table was set with simple dishes: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, steamed vegetables. To Sarah, it was just a normal Tuesday dinner. To Michael, it was a feast. He sat at the edge of his chair, unsure if he should touch anything. His hands twitched nervously on his lap. Tommy climbed onto the chair beside him, grinning. "Mommy, can I serve him?" Sarah nodded. Tommy eagerly scooped potatoes onto Michael's plate, then chicken, then vegetables. "Here, you have to eat lots. Mommy says it makes you strong." Michael's throat tightened. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the fork. The first bite nearly broke him. The warmth, the flavor, the simple comfort of a real meal. It was overwhelming. "Good?" Tommy asked eagerly. Michael swallowed hard, blinking back tears. It's amazing. Thank you." Sarah watched quietly from across the table. She noticed how he chewed slowly, savoring every bite, as though afraid it might be his last. And she realized, when was the last time anyone had really fed him? Over dinner, Sarah asked softly, "So, how long have you been out there? On the streets?" Michael shifted uncomfortably, staring at his plate. "A while." Tommy tilted his head. "Don't you have a house?" Michael forced a smile. "Not anymore, buddy." "Why?" Sarah shot her son a gentle look. "Tommy," but Michael shook his head. "It's okay. He should know." He took a deep breath. His voice was low, heavy with memories. I had a house, a job, a family. I had everything. But life doesn't always go the way you plan. My wife, she got sick. I spent everything I had trying to help her. And when she passed, I couldn't keep it together. Lost the job, lost the house, and eventually lost my little girl too. Silence filled the room. Tommy's eyes widened. "You had a daughter?" Michael nodded. "Yes, her name's Emily. She's about your age now." His voice cracked on the words. "But she lives with other relatives now. Somewhere better than I could give her." Sarah's chest ached. She could see the pain in his eyes, the hollow spaces grief had carved into his soul. Tommy reached out and placed his small hand on Michael's arm. "I think Emily misses you." Michael's eyes burned. "I miss her too, buddy. Every day." After dinner, Sarah washed the dishes while Michael sat with Tommy in the living room. The boy showed him his toy cars, his favorite picture books, even his stuffed bear. For a moment, Michael wasn't a man society ignored. He was simply someone's dad again. Sarah watched from the kitchen doorway. She had invited him in out of gratitude, but now she felt something else: respect, compassion, and maybe the faintest spark of hope. Later that evening, Michael stood awkwardly by the door, pulling his torn coat back on. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for the meal, for letting me be here. It's been a long time." Sarah smiled faintly. "You're welcome. And thank you, again, for keeping Tommy safe." Michael nodded, his eyes dropping to the floor. He didn't want to leave, but he couldn't stay. This wasn't his world anymore. "Goodbye, Tommy," he whispered. But the boy shook his head and threw his arms around Michael's waist. "Don't go." Michael froze, stunned. Slowly, he wrapped his arms around the child, closing his eyes as tears slipped down his cheeks. "I have to, buddy," he whispered. "But maybe I'll see you again." Sarah watched the scene quietly, her heart twisting. She had no idea then just how true those words would be. The following week, Sarah took Tommy to the park. The air was crisp, and children's laughter echoed across the playground. But Tommy wasn't running toward the swings. He was scanning the benches, his little eyes searching. And then he shouted, "Michael!" Sarah turned. There he was, sitting on a bench, wrapped in the same torn coat, his hands cupped around a steaming cup of coffee someone must have given him. Michael's eyes lit up when he saw Tommy running toward him. He rose to his feet, a smile breaking across his weathered face. "Hey, buddy." Tommy flung himself into Michael's arms. "I missed you." Sarah watched in silence, her heart caught in her throat. It had only been a week, but Tommy had remembered. Michael chuckled softly. "I missed you too, kiddo." Sarah approached, her voice soft. "Hello, Michael." He nodded politely, almost shyly. "Hi, Sarah. I didn't expect to see you again." "Neither did I," she admitted. But inside, she knew part of her had hoped they would. Over the next few days, Michael began to appear more often, not by accident. Tommy dragged Sarah back to the park, always asking, always hoping, and each time, Michael was there. Sometimes he helped an elderly man carry groceries. Sometimes he swept the sidewalk outside a bakery in exchange for day-old bread. Sometimes he simply sat and listened when someone lonely needed to talk. Sarah began to notice something. This wasn't a man defined by his homelessness. This was a man defined by his kindness. One afternoon, as Tommy raced down the slide, Sarah sat beside Michael on the bench. "You know," she said softly, "you're not what I expected." Michael raised an eyebrow. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone bitter, someone angry at the world. But you're—" She hesitated, then smiled faintly. "You're different." Michael shrugged. "I was angry once, but it doesn't change anything. People pass me by like I'm nothing. If I can make someone's day a little easier, even in small ways, and at least I'm not nothing to them." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, and for the first time, she didn't just see a man in rags. She saw a man who still carried dignity, even when the world stripped everything else away. That night, as Sarah tucked Tommy into bed, he whispered, "Mommy, why can't Michael live with us?" Sarah's chest tightened. "Sweetheart, it's not that simple. But he's nice. And he's sad. We could make him happy." Tears stung Sarah's eyes. Out of the mouths of children came the purest truths. The next morning, she packed an extra sandwich into Tommy's lunchbox. "For Michael," Tommy said proudly as he handed it to him later. Michael tried to refuse. "I can't take this from you." But Sarah insisted. "You can, and you will. It's just a sandwich." Michael accepted it, his voice rough. "Thank you. Both of you." But not everyone saw what Sarah saw. Neighbors began to whisper. They saw Sarah speaking with the homeless man in the park. They saw Tommy hugging him. One even said, "You should be careful. Men like that, you don't know what they're capable of." The words stung. Doubt crept into Sarah's mind. Was she being reckless? Was she putting Tommy in danger? That evening, she confronted Michael. "People are talking," she said. "They don't understand." Michael lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry, I don't want to cause you trouble. Maybe I should stay away." But before Sarah could answer, Tommy ran up and grabbed Michael's hand. "No, don't go. Please don't go." Michael's chest ached. He wanted to protect them, even from himself. But Sarah saw the fear in her son's eyes, and in that moment, she made a choice. "You're not going anywhere," she said firmly. Michael's eyes widened. "Sarah, I don't care what they say. I trust you." Weeks passed. Winter gave way to early spring. Michael found small jobs through people Sarah knew, handyman work, deliveries, even tutoring a neighbor's child in math. Slowly, he began piecing his life back together. Every night he came by, Tommy would run to him, shouting his name with joy. And slowly, Sarah found herself smiling too. One evening, after dinner, Sarah walked Michael to the door. "You've been good for him," she said softly. Michael smiled. "He's been good for me." There was a pause, a silence thick with words unsaid. Finally, Michael spoke. "Sarah, I don't have much to offer. No house, no money, just me. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be here. For Tommy. For you. Sarah's eyes shimmered. Michael, you've already given us more than you know. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Something fragile, yet undeniable. One afternoon, Tommy ran into the living room, his little feet pounding against the floor. He threw himself into Michael's arms and shouted, "Daddy!" The word hung in the air. Michael froze. His heart stopped. Slowly, he pulled back and looked at Tommy. What did you just call me?" Tommy beamed. "Daddy! You're my daddy now." Michael's vision blurred with tears. He looked at Sarah, panicked, uncertain, but Sarah only smiled through her own tears, and Michael broke. He held Tommy tight, sobbing into his hair. "I'll never let you go, never." Months later, Michael stood at a small altar, wearing a borrowed suit. Sarah stood beside him, radiant in a simple white dress. Tommy clutched Michael's hand proudly as the vows were spoken. Michael's voice trembled. "I once thought I'd lost everything, my family, my purpose, my worth. But you gave it back to me. Sarah, Tommy, today, everything changes. Today, I am whole again." As he kissed his new wife and lifted his new son into his arms, the church erupted with applause. Michael had once been invisible, but now he was seen. He was loved. He was home. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change the course of an entire life. A man society had forgotten found a family, and a little boy, who once felt lost, found a father. This was the day everything changed.